What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Chris, man. We are here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is Thursday, June 20th. My name is Chris Drummond. I am a freelance sports reporter based out of Minnesota here. I'm also someone who is a casino host and proprietor of this podcast, Work Hard, Play Harder, where I bring individuals on to talk about their why into their profession and get to know them outside of their occupation. I got a special guest that's coming on with me today. Her name is Taylor Dahl. She is the social media director of the flagship station for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is 1010XL 92.5 down there in Jacksonville, Florida. She's also a host for SB Nation of the Monsters of the Midway, Windy City. So we're definitely going to be able to get to talk to her about hosting her podcast show, talk to her about what she does on the flagship station for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and get to know her a little bit. I'm looking forward to this one, y'all. So without any further ado, I introduce to you the lovely, talented, beautiful Taylor Dahl. Hello there, Taylor. How we doing?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's wonderful to see your face. Thank you for coming on my Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. How we doing this week?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. This is day 3 of me being off. So my Monday actually starts tomorrow. So it's all good. It's all good. I love it. I love
There you
it.
go. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've been battling a little bit of a cold this week, so I'm on the tail end of it now, so I'm starting to feel better, which is nice.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Definitely glad to hear that. I want to reiterate to you why I wanted to bring you on here real quick before I start peppering you with all these questions. I know you're a social media director for your flagship station down there, 1010XL 92.5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you obviously work with the radio station, talk about sports, work in sports. I know you also have a podcast as well as your host for the SB Nation. We're going to talk about that, talk about topics you talk about on that as well. I'm a sports reporter, so I love talking to other people who are in sports and as passionate about sports like myself. So to me, it was a no-brainer in talking to you and kind of getting to know you as far as what you do for your job, but also outside of what you do for your job. So with that being said, my first question is the same with every guest that I have on here, and that is, what is your why? What is your why of why you do what you do? Did you have any role models growing up? Anybody inspire you? What was your reason of choosing sports and media?
Yeah. So my path is a little bit different than a lot of people's. I've always loved sports. My great grandpa played in Major League Baseball. My brother played Major League Baseball. My dad played college baseball. So the baseball world was instilled in us very quickly when we were younger. That also spread to other sports. They were big football fans, big college football fans, big NFL fans. And so I grew up in a household that on Sundays we were watching football. Baseball was on all the time. My brother had his baseball cards, and my dad had all his room of memorabilia, and so it was just it was a big part of my life growing up. So I always loved sports, and I was more of I don't want to say tomboy because I was still girly girl. Like I still wanted to wear my dresses and play with dolls, but I also wanted to play football with the boys outside. Like that's just kind of how I always was. So when I played sports through middle school, high school. High school, I messed up my ankle really bad and couldn't play. My junior year, I ended up not having to sit out and not being able to play. It kind of screwed some things up moving forward for me when it came to playing sports. So when I got to college, I kind of had to figure some things out, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I loved sports. So I started doing communications. I went to University of South Florida, and I didn't really know what route I wanted to take. I just knew that in some form I'd like to be in the sports world. I didn't know if that was going to be social media or if that was going to be like more of a PR type of person, or that was going to, I honestly never imagined I'd be talking. I just more so thought I'd be in the back end of stuff, honestly. I even thought about physical therapy, like stuff like that, just something to keep me in the world of sports. And so after I graduated, I honestly had like 2 years in between time where I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I moved back to Chicago in that time. And my friends up there were like, you are too knowledgeable and like care too much about these teams to not being like do something involved in this. I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't even know how to get my foot in the door anywhere. You know, it's been 2 years now since college.
Right.
So I actually ended up putting in an application, just super random. That we had this sports radio station that now I still work at in Jacksonville, 1010XL, and I put in a application to just intern for a football season. And I was like, let me just see, you know, what it's like to be in that building and be around this, and is it something I'd want to do? So I
Sure.
interned during football season of the 2015 season. The Jags had just drafted Blake Bortles, so they had a new
Yep.
quarterback coming in. There was all of that going on, and
Mhm.
about my internship went through. I loved it. I even at that point was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do radio. I'm not quite sure. Like these people have been doing it for 30 years. I don't know if I'm like good enough for that. You know,
Right.
a couple months later, they called me and they were like, hey, we have a front desk job here. We think you'd be perfect. It's your foot in the door. Just get you familiar with radio. And so I took it. I worked there part time. And so I'm like the epitome of working up from the bottom because I started there just working 2, 3 days a week, filing, answering phones, working the front desk, and gradually worked my way up to now hosting a daily show. So it was very a different path for me, but it was always kind of I knew I wanted to be in the sports world in some form.
Absolutely. And talking to people on this platform that I've created, everybody's story is different. It's never the same. And I love that grind. Like you said, you started from the bottom and now look where you at, right? And I'm sure you learned a lot of things along the way. And you're doing something that you passionately are good at and you love to do. Great segue to this next question because you talked about it, going to University of South Florida. Talk to me about were there any other schools that could have persuaded you from going to the University of South Florida?
Yeah, so I honestly, I was a big, my whole family is from Chicago or Indiana area up there, and so Northwest Indiana, the region. And so
Hmm.
I honestly my dream was to either go to Notre Dame or Northwestern. But obviously being in Florida for so long, those are two schools that are already expensive. Add on out of state tuition to that. It was
Yeah,
insane. I just didn't grow up in a family that could afford that. Most of my money came from like Pell Grants and stuff like that to be able to even
yep,
go to school.
right,
So that was a big part of it for me, honestly. I needed to be able to go to a school that I knew the Pell Grants and my scholarships would be able to afford the majority of my schooling. Cause like I said, I just didn't have the money to do it on my own. So there was like FAU, there was Florida Gulf Coast, USF. I even honestly debated for a while, maybe doing a couple years community school and then going to like Florida State because it's a lot easier to get into one of those schools once you already have your AA and it's not as expensive, obviously, to go
right.
2 years compared to four. I just for me, it was kind of convenient because, like I said, my schooling ended up being paid for. I actually went to not the main campus because the main campus is in Tampa, and I ended up going to the Sarasota campus, which
Mm.
I absolutely loved because I still got like the beach world. In Jacksonville, obviously, we have the beach, we have a lot of water, so I still kind of wanted to live around that. So I still got the beach, but I was 45 minutes from St. P. I could go to Rays games. I could go to Tampa Bay Bucks games. I could, again, my world revolved around sports. So being able to do that type of thing was important to me. So yeah, University of South Florida ended up kind of being more of a convenience, but something I actually ended up loving. I met really good people. I had amazing professors there. I went to the smaller sister campus, so it was kind of like we had our own little like sorority fraternity there of everybody was almost going for either communications or like education. Those were the two majors they had there. So everyone
Right.
was also had the same kind of goal, which was really fun.
That's awesome. That really is. And I love the fact you said staying home because I was born in Chicago. So my mom
Okay.
and dad grew up in Chicago. My dad's on the south side, my mother's on the west side.
Okay.
So I was born in Cook County Hospital, if you're familiar with that hospital there in Chicago. So definitely some ties there. I always wanted to either go to Syracuse or Northwestern.
Okay.
But as you said, it was expensive. My mother moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was like, okay, well, I got to go statewide because like I didn't grow up with a family either that had money like that. So I was like, okay, let me go to Kennesaw State, which is the state school in Atlanta. That's where I got my undergrad at. So it's good that we have that tie there, that connection as well. I like the fact that. Do you ever get a chance to go back to Chicago?
Yeah, I try to go at least once a year. So last year I went for did I even get to go? I'm trying to remember. It's all starts to blur together now. I do usually try to go at least once a year. I don't think I got to go last year. I did go for the Bears Niners game, and I usually base it around sporting events because, like I said, if I'm going up there, I want to go see the Bears or Bulls or Blackhawks or Cubs. Usually, if I can see multiple, I'm doing it. Like this year, I'm going to try to knock out a Cubs and Bears game at one time. But so I do. My goal is to go every year.
Mhm.
Sometimes it hasn't happened, but I love the city. It's amazing. The food's great. I love seeing my family. The sports are
Mm.
great. It's just I love it.
Absolutely. Still got a lot of family back there from my dad's side, my mom's side. Now that I'm located here in Minnesota, doing my thing here, I definitely will be going back there for the NABJ conference because they have a
Okay.
conference in July. But the past couple years, I went to Wrigley Field for the first time. And I also seen a Blackhawks game for the first time. And every time I go back there, Taylor, I try to get some deep dish pizza because nobody make
I
deep
know.
dish pizza like Chicago. Nobody
I know.
does.
I know. That's definitely something the food every time. I'm like, all right, I gotta get Italian beef. I've got to get a deep dish pizza. There's certain things that I know I have to hit when I go back to
Mhm.
Chicago. But it's funny because there's this place here actually that just opened up in St. Augustine, Florida,
Mhm.
and the people are from Chicago, and they just opened it's called Hillary's Pizza, and they do like true deep dish pizza, and it's like 45 minutes from me, but we've already made a few trips because it's the closest thing like we've been able to find here. But the people just moved from Chicago like 7, 8 months ago. So it's been kind of fun to
Pretty
have that
cool.
around. Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that. On here with Taylor Dahl, social media director of the flagship station for the Jacksonville Jaguars, on my Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. Taylor, what I want to do is I want to ask you some favorite things, right?
Okay.
And you just give me the 411 of what some of your favorite things are. Okay. So here we
Okay.
go. What's your favorite meal to cook?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say, and this is a newer favorite. It's changed within the past couple years because I've recently learned how to perfect the ribeye. And
Ooh,
I love ribeyes. It's like probably my favorite thing to eat, but forever I couldn't do it. I don't have a grill, so it's like just like in a pan seared, and I could
sure.
never get it right. So it used to be frustrating, but within the last couple years, I perfected it. So I would say probably a ribeye with the baked potato is my favorite thing, my go-to right now.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Now, it all depends on how you like your ribeye, though. Do you like your
Yeah.
ribeye medium rare or well done?
So I'm a medium rare. I like red.
Yep, me too. Me too. People don't understand that medium rare. Now, at first, I'll be honest and transparent. I used to like my steak well done. I only can grill it. I can't cook it. I'm more of a
Yeah.
griller than a anyway, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
I used to like it well done, and then I changed my mind when I tried medium rare because I found out you don't need as much sauce to put
Mhm.
on a medium rare one as you do for a well done one because the
Yeah.
juices be flowing. So I love it. So yeah,
So
now
good.
medium rare for sure.
Yes. So much
Okay.
flavor, and that's why I love ribeyes because they're extra flavorful anyways. So
Absolutely. I love my ribeyes, my sirloins, I love my porterhouses too, but porterhouses are very big and I cannot
yeah.
eat that in one sitting. That's for sure. Just can't do it. Next question. Favorite concert you've ever attended?
Ooh, that's a good one too. I'm a big music person. So side note, my minor was music theory. I was like my whole life very into I didn't play an instrument, but I was in chorus and gospel choir and all these things growing up. So um when I was in the midst of figuring out what I wanted to do, a music teacher was part of that because I love music so much. So concerts have been a big part of my life.
Sure.
I'm probably going to say one that not a lot of people know just because it's like a band from Florida, more local, but it's this band called Mayday Parade. They're actually from Tallahassee, more like a pop, rocky type of band, but they've been my favorite band since I was like 15. And they're one of the ones that, like, no matter what album they put out, I love it. And I've been listening to it now for almost 20 years. So obviously they got me somewhere, but
Absolutely, that's pretty dope. And like you said, that again, we have some similarities because I used to, if it wasn't for sports, I would probably do theater. I
okay.
really love plays and I love musicals. My top three favorite musicals is Wicked, Rent,
Okay.
and Hairspray. Those are my top three.
I love
I
it.
used to be in choir as well, honor choir back when I was growing up in San Diego as well. Because, like I said, I was born in Chicago, but I wasn't raised in Chicago. My parents was. I was raised in San Diego, and we had an honor choir. So I used to do honor choir out there for my 5th and 12th grade year. So yeah, definitely love chorus. I'm
Yeah.
sorry at playing instruments. I'm terrible at
Yeah,
it, but chorus,
same.
I love it. I love it. Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. Favorite restaurant you like to eat at?
Hmm. That is a hard one. So as much as I love to cook steak, as I mentioned, that's my favorite thing to like make at home. I'm a big Asian cuisine person. So I
Okay.
love like hibachi, going to the hibachi grills, having them cook in
Mm,
front of you, getting some sushi. So I would say it wouldn't be a specific one, but any like hibachi grill you're taking me to where I'm getting like steak and rice and sushi and the miso soup, I'm happy.
got you. Never had sushi before, Taylor. I've never tried
Really?
sushi. Yeah, I'm
I
so
would say
afraid
I know.
to
I would
try
say
it.
start easy. So like do you like crab?
I do. Yes.
There's a lot of like crab based ones that are absolutely delicious, still cooked too, so you're not having to eat anything raw. But
Mm,
that's where I started. I started with all of the crab based ones and kind of have like worked myself my way up. But I love crab, so if you love crab, you'd probably honestly like it.
okay, I'm with you on that. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. Now you know I'm a sports reporter, so I got to throw in a sports question. Favorite
Yeah.
sport you like to watch on TV? Favorite sport you like to go see in person?
Okay. I'm going to say NFL football, and I'm saying NFL specifically because I am an NFL over college football girl. I'll watch college football. I like football in general, but I am more of a pro football girl. So I'd say to watch on TV, it's going to be pro football for me. To watch in person, it'd probably be hockey.
Got you. I like that. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Last of the favorites. Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
That is good. Let's see. I honestly haven't been to a ton of places. Chicago a lot. I'm a big vacationer, like, and when I hit the few vacations I get, I usually want to go back home. But I will
Mhm.
say I went to Boston and I really enjoyed Boston. This was actually back in 2017. The Jags were in the AFC Championship against the Patriots that year, so we just
Well,
made a whole week of it. Went up, enjoyed Boston. I had never been there, so it was cool to kind of see like the history of Boston, all the historical graveyards and all of that stuff. I'm not the biggest history buff, but when you put me in environments like that, it's really cool to me. All the pubs, that was kind of cool. And just obviously to see like a Fenway and all of these places was really fun. So I will say, I think for me, just of the places that I've been able to go so far, Boston is probably one of my favorite I've been to.
definitely on the bucket list for me. I've not been to Boston quite yet. I would probably say Cabo San Lucas for me. That was a friend's trip, Mexico.
Mhm.
But I love water. I love beaches. I love just good weather. So that's just me,
Yeah.
totally, no
Yeah,
doubt.
it's funny. I always tell people because I haven't been to anywhere like tropical. Like I've never been to the Bahamas or Cabo or Cancun, or I've never even been to the Keys and I live in Florida. But I always tell people I'm like I live 10 minutes from a beach. So like when I want a vacation, I like to go to like the mountains or like big cities and because I get the beach all the time. So
Yeah, that makes totally sense. That makes total sense. Totally understand that. Okay, let's talk about your day to day.
okay.
What you do as far as going on the radio, being at that flagship station, and talk about your podcast. Some of the topics that you talk about. What days does your podcast come on? How many people's involved with your podcast? Are you solo or do you have a co-host? Talk about those things of how your day starts and when your day ends.
Okay. So 1010XL is the radio station I work at. That is the flagship of the Jaguars, also home of the Florida Gators. So there I am the social media director. So I run all our social media platforms and our website.
Mhm.
And in addition to that, I also co-host a show called Helmets and Heels. We are on 12 to 2 every day. Three girls on that with me, Lauren Brooks and Mia O'Brien. So it's all women. We are the first all women sports talk show in the nation, actually, to
Mm.
become a daily show. So it was really cool. Helmets and Heels has been a thing for about a decade, but previously we were only Tuesday nights, and just in April we got moved to a daily show. So it's been really fun to kind of experience that and just honestly in like a way make history because it's just things like more and more women being in the sports world and it's fun. So that my normal there is 9 to 5. I'm a 9 to 5, but like I said, my middle of my day is kind of taken out because I'm doing a show. But that very Jaguars based Jacksonville Jaguars obviously rules the city here in Jacksonville, and that's what people want to
Sure.
hear about mainly. That and college football. SEC football is huge. And so we talk a lot of SEC football too. We do try to mix in some other stuff because each of us, like I said, my family's all from Chicago, Mia's family's all from New Jersey. And so we do have a little mix of different type of personalities, and the way we grew up is different, and the sports we watched and teams we watched is different.
Sure.
So that's the 1010 side. I do all of our graphics. I'm more so because we have a multimedia director too, and that's also Mia. Mia handles all of our video elements and the more like funny videos that we see, like our pressers and stuff like that. I'm more on the like promotional side. So all of
Okay.
the social media you see with events like our golf events we do or any charity events or stuff like that, I'm more on that side of the social media aspect. And so I manage, create, do all of that daily, weekly, kind of different types of year, obviously busier and less busy. Football season slam. This is our deadest period probably
Sure.
because obviously the in Jacksonville we only have one major sport. So when the Jags aren't on, it's a little bit of a lull, but we still have some minor league sports to focus on a little bit, and like I said, college football. And then on the other side, Making Monsters. That's my podcast I do for the Bears, and that kind of I started that I want to say almost 2 years ago now,
Okay.
and that was just more so I'm a diehard Chicago fan, and so I sat on a podcast with some guys one time, honestly, something kind of similar like this. They were just highlighting women in sports, and so I was doing a podcast with them, and afterwards they were like, "You're really good. Like, would you want to start a Bears podcast? We are looking to add one more to our platform." And at the
Sure.
time, I was like, "I don't know if I have time. Like, I have a full-time job. Like, I don't know how much time I can dedicate to it." I ended up doing it, and honestly, I'm glad I did because it keeps me like in that Bears world too, which I love so much. And that one's
Hmm.
my baby. It's I named it Making Monsters. If people weren't familiar, Monsters of the Midway was like the thing in Chicago in the 80s, and
Yeah.
that is so I'm saying Making Monsters because it's us building that back, like that 85 Bears mentality and how we've kind of the path of it. So that podcast is really fun for me because it more so focuses on players and the type of person they are on and off the field. So what I do is I pick a player a week. I go and I find people to talk to that know them. I talk to high school coaches, middle school coaches, moms, dads, brothers, college coaches, and I just kind of get their path, their journey to the NFL from the time they're kids to the NFL. So it's been really fun because it's like you get to know these guys and their story, and some struggle, like some don't. I just said all our paths are different, and some of these guys, what they have to go through,
Absolutely.
yeah, to get to the NFL, it's amazing. And some paths are a little different, but they still have, different adversity that they have to get through and different challenges. So it's really fun to kind of see how each of these guys start at point A and then now they're all on the Chicago Bears and their stories are so drastically different. So that's Making Monsters. It's really fun. I've had some really great episodes to where I've just learned stuff that emotional episodes, exciting episodes, so that's Making Monsters and it's fantastic. So if anyone wants to listen, you can find that on any of the podcast platforms, also YouTube. And if a ton of players that if you want to learn about, they're all on there.
Now, when do you normally do this podcast of the Making Monsters?
So Making Monsters during the season, usually I'll post them on Thursdays.
Okay.
So like games will be Sunday. I'll pick a player. Those next few days, I'll kind of figure out. I'll find all my guests that I'm talking to, and
Mhm.
do the interviews within that, and then I'll drop the episodes Thursdays. During the off season, it's a little different because I also stray. I don't do the player episodes during the off season.
Mhm.
Once the off season hits, I'll usually like free agency. I'll go back and I'll do episodes on all our free agents that the Bears signed. So I'll go not as in depth because I still want to be able to do their full Making Monsters in the season if I want to, but I'll go talk to usually like a reporter that talked to them or something, that covered them and talk to them and just get a more X's and O's side of it. Like, what are we expecting they're going to add to the Bears? And so I'll do that for free agency. I'll do that for like pre-draft guys I want the Bears to draft. And then after the draft, usually a breakdown. Right now, I'm doing a summer series of just kind of where the Bears roster is right now. And those are a little sporadic. So today, and then I'll have another one on Monday. But in season Thursdays are when my episodes will drop.
I love it. I love it. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of anybody that does a podcast. I'm always supportive. I'll definitely watch. If there's any time that I can possibly be a guest on it and support it, I would definitely love that. But I definitely will support it and watch it for sure. No question about it.
Well,
I
thank you.
love that. No problem. With you doing all these different things, though, we got to touch up on mental health, right? I think mental health is very important, especially in the industry of sports and journalism. Sometimes sports is not conventional hours. You talked about doing a 9 to 5, but you also do this other podcast on the side. You also talk about the Jags and the Bears. You have a social life as well outside of doing what you do for work, family, friends. Like, how do you keep your mental health strong, but not go overboard with the work-life balance and have burnouts come about?
Yeah, I'm very adamant about like me time, family time, friend time. That's one thing about me. My friends and family are like my world. My brother's my best friend. He has two kids, my nephews, and I'm obsessed with them. So anytime I do feel overwhelmed, I honestly will call my brother and be like, I need to see my nephews. Like I just need a play date with my nephews right now.
Yeah.
But I'm also lucky enough to just have a really good support group. My grandparents have been my rocks since I was, I mean, born pretty much. And I truly say this, like I would not be where I am now if it wasn't for my grandparents. So I am they're my number one fan, but they also are my entire world when it comes to just like the person I am and how I deal with things. So they are a big part of me staying sane through a lot of times because it hasn't always been the easiest path. Almost 10 years of, like I said, days when I thought I was never going to get out of the front desk and stop filing. And then there were moments where I was like, I don't know if this is for me, you know? They were always
Sure.
that person to be there. And I also, my friends, I'm a very social person, so I have a lot of like acquaintances, but my tight knit group of friends, we've all been friends for like 15 years plus, and
Sure.
also are just like a big part of how I get through day to day and stressful things. It's also kind of nice because they're not the biggest sports fans as I am, so when I'm with them,
Right.
tune out a little. Like I don't have to be so like sports world all the time. Like
Mhm.
my best friend that I live with, she's fantastic. She could care less. She does not care 1 ounce about what's happening in the NFL, which is nice because I talk about it so much. So
Mhm.
it's nice to be able to tune that out. And I mentioned music. Music's big for me. I go to a lot of still concerts, local places around Jacksonville that has live music. Very adamant about making sure that I have the music fit into my life, all about my Spotify playlist because I always have to have music on when I'm getting ready in the morning or when you're cooking dinner,
Absolutely.
whatever it is. So
I'm
those
with
are
you.
my big things. Obviously, there's always therapy has been in parts of my life of when when I was going through something a little tougher that I did feel like I needed something extra. Very open to those type of things. But yeah, I think for me mainly like just the support system that I have between my friends and family has been huge for me.
No, I love that. And I appreciate your transparency on talking about therapy. It's not a fragile, it's not, it doesn't make you look fragile when you have therapy. It's okay to talk to somebody because sometimes things get very overwhelming and you need somebody different to talk to other than a family and a friend because it's kind of predictable what family and friends will tell you
Yeah.
sometimes, right? So I love the fact that you said that you have your tight knit group of people, right? You have a lot of acquaintances, but you know you have your day ones, right? I call them day ones.
Yeah.
And for me, out here, I'm a huge mama's boy. My mom's back in Georgia, so I gotta call moms all the time. And I'm in my 30s. I'm in my
Yeah.
30s. I'm a grown man, but I still talk to my moms and be like, "Mama, how you doing? I need to talk to you. I'm going through a day." And I love talking to her. I love writing poetry. I love going to the gym. I love working out. But the best thing that you said before I get to this next question is you surround yourself with friends who don't particularly have an interest in sports. And I love that. I really
Mhm.
love it because sometimes I don't want to come, I'm around it all day long. I cover
Yeah.
high school, I cover college, and I do freelance work. Sometimes I just want to talk about something else. I don't want
Yeah.
to talk about sports. I don't want to talk about your hot takes. I don't care about your hot takes. I want to do something else. I want to talk about music, anything, right? So
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have friends like that because I too have a couple of buddies of mine who could just give a damn about any
Yeah.
kind of sport, and it's refreshing. It's great.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and that honestly, because it's funny because people at work, everybody I work with obviously love sports and we love talking about it, and some of them even more so. Like some want to eat, breathe, sleep sports, and like
Mhm.
don't care. When they get home, they turn on their TV and immediately have the game. I'm that person that I have my other shows I like to watch sometimes. Like I like to tune
Absolutely.
it out a little bit. So I do like to just kind of sometimes have that space of there's other things in my life that are important and that I care about. And honestly, it's sometimes it's too serious. There's moments where I'm like, this, it gets political or whatever the case may
Yep.
be. And I have to kind
Yep.
of take myself out of it for a minute because, like you said, people can be the world of online, people can be mean. And we host an
Mhm.
all women's talk show. And there's people out there where they just say things sometimes where I'm like, I just don't understand how you could sit there and say this to like a human being and think it's
Mhm.
okay. It's part of it. It's part of being in this world and it's something to accept, but it is nice to be able to step away.
Absolutely. Definitely have trolls out there, right? Just trolling for no reason, want your attention. But, we have to learn quickly. We can't give them the type of attention that they want to give that kind of energy because it ain't even worth it. Me personally, like you said, I have my shows. I love Big Bang Theory. I know it's off, but that's one of my favorites. I love Breaking Bad. I was so damn mad when that show went off because that was an amazing show. But
Yeah.
I love to binge watch that and look at that. I love those shows.
Yeah.
This is a great segue though, because again, when someone comes up to you, Taylor, and they say, I want to do what you do, right? You're a social media director. I want to be a woman in sports that talks about sports and has a podcast to talk about sports or a radio show to talk about sports. What kind of advice would you give that individual for their start in the industry like that?
Yeah, the first thing I always say is like have patience. It's not an easy industry to get in right away and then once you are in sometimes you're not immediately like at the level you want to be or making the money you want to be. I worked two jobs for the first like 5 years because I wasn't making enough just doing radio. So I also bartended on the side because I had to survive. I had to like eat, I had to pay my
Okay.
bills. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did that for a while. And so I always tell people just patience because everybody has a different path in this industry. Everybody has some people get it, they meet the right person, they're networking, they're in and you're good to go. Some people like me have to wait a little longer and kind of prove themselves and work their way up. So that's the first thing I always say. But I also say like keep your personality and be you because I think that sometimes people try too hard to be this I'm just throwing a name because it's a popular name, but like a Stephen A. Smith. They try to be that guy that is like the vocal hot take in your face. This is what it is, and they think that everybody wants that. But sometimes people want the more calm, eloquent speaker that is gonna not be so in your face about things. And there's listeners for everybody. So I always say don't lose your personality. And that's one thing that I was told very early on because I'm a very like quirky, goofy, like giggly type of personality. That's how I am. So on the show, everyone knows my laugh. It's like a thing where on 1010, everyone's like, oh, Taylor's laugh. Like it's so cute. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be cute, but I love that people appreciate that I have this little giggle and they know it's my giggle because they listen enough to like register, like, oh, Taylor thinks something's funny. And that's something
Absolutely.
that I was always told, don't lose that. Like keep who you are. There's a reason like you got here because of the personality that you have, not because of some like radio persona that you want to create. So that's one thing another thing. So the patience, just be you. People will love you. Somebody will love you and not everybody's going to love you though. So that's another
Right.
thing. There's
Right.
going to be haters out there. And that's probably the third thing I tell people, which is another thing I got told very early on. There's a guy I work with, Rick Ballou. He hosts one of our night shows. And when I was an intern, I was interning for his show. We were doing a road broadcast. I was helping them set things up and break it down. And he was asking me what I wanted to do. And I was kind of, we were talking sports. I was telling him my goals. And he was like, just don't worry about haters. And he was like, honestly, he was like, if you don't have haters, you're probably not doing it right. And he was like, because if people start to disagree with you, then at that point, you're saying something strong enough to make people really listen and think. And so he
Absolutely.
was like, not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody's going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to be nice, but just keep going. Don't let those people bother you. Honestly, let it fuel you. And then he also told me that same night to if you ever he was like it's okay to be nervous because that's another thing when you're jumping on air, you're public speaking or you're doing anything like that, like nerves come, it's natural. And so he always told me that if you ever lose that, he was like if you ever lose that nervousness, honestly, where you get a little nervous right before you're getting on air, he's like you probably don't love it the way you used to love it. And he was like, because I've been doing this for 35 years and I still get that little nervousness right before like my show
Absolutely.
liner comes on, because it's something you love. And when you love something and you're passionate about something, like that excitedness comes out in that form, you know? So that's a few things that I would tell people. Just also keep going. Like, don't ever tell somebody that if someone says you're not good enough, keep going. Because I heard that a million times. Like, you sound too young, or this and this and
Wow.
this and this and this. And I
Okay.
heard that when I first got in, that my voice sounded too young for radio. And now I'm a co-host of a daily show. So it's like, just keep going, but be patient.
Absolutely. Keep your eyes on the prize. Don't let other people deter you from what your determination is. I love that Rick said that. Shout out to Rick for saying those things, because he's absolutely right. If you don't have some people hating on you, you probably aren't doing it right. The best thing that you probably said in that though was patience, because that's also something I preach out here to, especially the Minnesota high schoolers.
Mhm.
Um, that I get a chance to cover that's going off to college, especially the seniors that ask me a lot of questions about journalism and sports and how is it like. You have to find your own voice, find your own writing style, find what's yours, right? Don't emulate others, right? It's great to look at and be inspired by them, but you have to find your own way, because they are who they are, you are who you are. So if you are able to find your own way and do your own thing, whatever it is, do that. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that I also say before I get to the next question is there's so many jobs in sports. That's one thing I've learned. I didn't realize how many positions that you can actually have in this sports industry. And there's a lot. Like, you don't have to like table yourself in like a bucket. Like, you can spread out and get as many type of opportunities you can. Try everything. Try
Yeah.
everything in journalism and sports, whatever it is. And because you find out things that you like to do, but you also find out things you don't want to do. So
Yeah.
I just say
Yeah.
be open and do that. That's what I like to tell the young people out here, especially the high schoolers.
Yeah.
About getting into the industry.
Yeah. I agree,
Now,
because well, honestly, like
what?
I've done, and I told you it's been the 10 years of me working my way up. In that process, I've done a little bit of everything. So when I first kind of started learning, I learned the back end of radio. So I learned how to like build our logs, which is what creates the commercials that everybody hears and hates, the commercials. But that's part of radio. That's how they get their money. So it's got to be there.
Yes,
But
advertising.
so the first part of my learning experience was learning that end. So I created the logs and I built all of those to put on the commercials, and I would do that back end type of stuff. And from there, I kind of learned how to run the soundboard. Also did some sideline reporting for like high school football in town. Figured out real
Mm-hmm.
quick, none of that is for me. And that's okay. Like, I did sideline reporting. I'll never regret doing it because it gave me an experience, something new. Like you just said, try it. Maybe you learn you hate it. I learned it's not for me. Some people may love it. So, and that's like you said, it's just a growing process. And there are so many aspects. I mean, there's 16 different things you could do in my building for radio, and
Absolutely.
most people probably have no idea some of these jobs exist. And so
Yep.
imagine that times like 100 for an NFL team or for an MLB team or wherever you want to work. So yeah, I agree. Try everything. Never say. I always was also told, like, say yes. Just keep saying yes when you're in your learning
Absolutely.
process of figuring out what you want to do, because that's how you'll really find your like niche thing that will work for you.
Absolutely. On here with Taylor Dahl, social media director of 1010XL, flagship station for Jacksonville Jaguars, and also podcast host of my Work Harder, Play Harder podcast. You know, we got to talk some Jaguars, and we'll talk some Bears as well. But the first thing we're going to do is talk some Jaguars. Now, Jaguars started off 6-3 last year, then took a dip late into the season, right? Trevor gets hurt. I don't think he ever comes back and be the same. When he came back, I don't think he ever was the same.
Yeah.
Went into the last week of the season having a chance to possibly get into the playoffs. I believe they played the Texans, if I'm not mistaken, but they didn't get in, right? So now you add a Gabe Davis with Calvin Ridley on their team. So now they got two good wide receivers. They got a good running back in Travis Etienne, if I'm saying his name right. Tell me, how do you think this team is going to shape up? And now what the expectations of the Houston Texans have usurped, because some of the pieces that they've gotten on their team and the acquisition of Stephon Diggs to already a pretty solid receiving core. People are sleeping on the Colts. Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson and the Colts. Nobody's really talking about them. But tell me, how do you think this AFC South is going to shape up? How do you think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do this season?
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I'm one of the most critical people when it comes to the Jags the last few years. I think that people got a little too comfortable, and because the generational word was thrown around with Trevor, people expected it to be like this easy path for, and Trevor was going to be this guy that was going to take everybody and carry us away to the promised land of the Super Bowl. And clearly that first year, Urban Meyer, absolute disaster. Everyone just kind of throws that out the window because there were so many bad things that were happening that season with the
Sure.
coaching staff and with other players and everything. You weren't developing Trevor, so we kind of just pushed that one outside the window, but outside the door. But the next year, obviously, they go to the playoffs. They come back down 21-0 against the Chargers and win a
Yeah,
playoff
I
game
know. I
after
know.
after Trevor Lawrence throws 4 interceptions. And that's my one thing I always go back to, that I'm like, that game ended, the Chargers fell apart. That's kind of the Chargers storyline in history. They did it with Philip Rivers too. For
Yep.
some reason, in those big moments, they can just never hold it out. And so to me, it was almost more so that than a Jaguars comeback. It was the Chargers just completely falling apart. So
Without
I always
question.
yeah, I always point to that where I'm like, it ended with us talking about Trevor Lawrence came back, threw 4 picks, brought the Jags back from a 21-point deficit, ended up winning a playoff game. And so we went into that offseason, the Jaguars went into that offseason thinking they were good because they were like, man, like we just won a playoff game against the Chargers. We
Yep.
won 9 games. We've found our quarterback. Trevor's hot. Like he had a really, really good last 6, 7 games that season, and they didn't do anything. They literally didn't sign anybody in free agency. Their draft was very blah. Like not one draft pick they got that year outside of Anton Harrison has done anything. And
Right.
so they got complacent. And that offseason, I kept telling people, everyone's like, no, we're good. Like Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram and like Trevor's arrived and we did this and this and this. And I was like, it's not good enough. Like they were barely winning some of these games. It took the Chargers completely collapsing to win that game. They should have made more moves. They need to fix the offensive line. I don't trust the offensive line. Everyone kept telling me, no, they're good. It's fine. What happens? They had one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league.
They did.
Trevor is getting hit every 2 seconds, and because the offensive line was so bad, they couldn't run the ball. They had one of the worst run games in the entire league. Trevor was hurt, like you just mentioned. He had five different injuries throughout the season. He didn't practice one time in the month of December because he was hurt, like every
Yep.
single week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the offensive line couldn't protect him. He was having to scramble and run. Because of that, he's fumbling the ball, and it was just a disaster towards the end. And the defense that actually looked pretty solid in the beginning of the year also
They
collapsed.
did. They
And I think
collapsed bad. They was a bad collapse.
yeah, and some of that we've heard some real bad things about coaching staff. Coaching staff wasn't teaching them certain things. We heard that literally there was like a month straight of practices where they were not working on alignments whatsoever. Like the word alignment was not said. And that's just, if you are a football person, like that's something you work on every single practice, especially if you're losing games, like something's wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of that. I also think it was a combination of the offense couldn't stay on the field. Trevor was turning the ball over, fumbling the ball. They had one of the worst third down conversion percentages, one of the worst red zone percentages. So the defense was right back on the field every time. And I think they were just exhausted. So I think it was a combination by exhaustion by the end. Everyone was banged up by the end. The coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball just kind of fell apart. And it hit them. They went from an 8-3 team to missing the playoffs, and it was the Titans they lost to at the end, who weren't even a good football team last year, who beat them that final week to keep them out of the postseason.
Oh,
and so,
okay.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of things that by the end of the year, everyone was like, all right, Taylor, you might have been right about some of these things. And I was like, yeah, you just never get complacent. And the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes have multiple Super Bowls, and you still see them every offseason making moves. The Detroit Lions, who struggled years after years after years, had a season where they also won 9 games. And that offseason, they went and spent one of the most money in the free agency. They had a bomb draft. And what did they do last year? Get even better. And I'm like, I just don't understand complacency in the NFL. You can't do that. So this offseason, they, I think, realized some of their mistakes they did last season. So this offseason, Eric Armstead, big addition on the defensive line. Mitch Morse from Buffalo, big addition on the offensive line. Obviously, you're hoping that a couple guys are coming back from injury healthy. Devon Hamilton was banged up a lot last year, missed a ton of time. Tyson Campbell was banged up. When healthy, one of the better corners in the league. Both of them banged up, missed some time. So they're expecting those two to get healthy in addition of Eric Armstead. hopefully the defense, a new defensive coach, by the way, Ryan Nielsen, who came from Atlanta, who really
Yep.
flipped that Atlanta defense last year. Made them from one of the worst defenses to a better half defense in one season. And now he's the DC in Jacksonville. So a lot of expectations for him. And then obviously healthy Trevor, I think, is a big thing. They lost Calvin. I'm personally not the biggest fan of Calvin Ridley, not like pre-Calvin, before gambling and injury. Fantastic.
Now,
Last year,
where did he go? Where did he go? If you don't mind me asking.
Tennessee.
Wow.
So he went to a division rival. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But we had a lot of issues with Calvin could not learn the playbook last year. And there were multiple moments. If anybody goes back and watches film, Calvin was in the wrong spot all the time and like ran the wrong routes constantly. I don't know if it was just because it was his first year back. He was trying to get acclimated to the game again. He missed almost 2 years between the injury and the suspension for gambling.
Yep, for gambling.
So maybe a year back next year will be better. We're hoping not, obviously, because it's a division rival, but I personally like Gabe Davis. They drafted Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. I think he's going to be a phenomenal wide receiver in the NFL.
He could be a sleeper. He can be a sleeper of a receiver. If anybody paid attention to him at LSU, he was good. He was solid.
Yeah. The man had 17 touchdowns, and that was across from Malik Neighbors. And so, yeah, we're very excited about Brian Thomas Jr. And obviously, Trevor staying upright is important. So they're hoping that the addition of center Mitch Morse helps with that a little bit, and some of the other guys getting healthy. So I predict that it should be a more consistent team. But to your point, the AFC South's only getting better. I think CJ Stroud's it. I think they nailed that quarterback. I said pre that year, because being a Bears fan, everyone was like, because obviously the Bears had the number 1 pick, and everyone was like, trade Justin and draft Bryce Young. I was like, no, if I'm drafting anybody and trading Justin, it's going to be CJ Stroud. I'm not drafting a tiny quarterback. Just not going to happen. So
that offense is going to be elite in Houston.
Nico
No
Collins
question.
is so good. Tank Dell is so good. They fixed their offensive line. They've added some more pieces on the defense. We talked about Danielle Hunter. Obviously, Stephon Diggs added there too.
I believe Joe Mixon's on that team too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have the potential to be a really, really good team. And so
do you think Jacksonville cracks top 7? Do you think they crack the top 7 of the playoffs?
So I think that if they all stay healthy, if Trevor stays healthy, Christian Kirk, Ingram, those main guys stay healthy, I do think they can be a top 7 team. It's not easy though in the AFC, and that's when you look at the AFC, because obviously you've got the Chiefs. You have the whole AFC North right now, who when you talk about Baltimore, they're going to be in it. Healthy Joe Burrow, Bengals are going to be in it. Pittsburgh is always in it. Mike Tomlin just finds a way for them to get in it every year, no matter what.
Sure.
If Deshaun Watson, I know hasn't been the Deshaun Watson we used to know, but if he's anywhere close to that, if they could do it with Joe Flacco last year, they can do it with the Deshaun Watson. So that whole division, that's 4 right there. Then, like I said, you still have the Chiefs. That AFC is just going to be so tough. So, I mean, if they do, they're going to have to win 10, 11 games to get in. It's not going to be one of the years where it's like you can win 8, 9 and scrape in.
So before we switch to the Bears, I'm gonna have you go on a limb here, because here's what I'm gonna think. Here's what I'm gonna say. No, they don't crack the top 7. I'm definitively gonna say that. Like you said, that AFC North is tough. You do have Houston. You have Kansas City. We didn't even talk about the East. We didn't talk about Buffalo, Miami, the Jets. I don't know if they crack the top 7. I'm going to say no. If I ask you right now, what would you say? Do Jacksonville make the playoffs?
Yeah, if you're asking me right now, I would say no.
Okay. Listen, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to it.
I think I need to see more. I need to see elite from Trevor too. I need to see less turnover. He has the most turnovers of any quarterback the last 2 seasons. We've got to see those. We've got to see those calm down. He cannot fumble the ball 14 times in a season. You just can't do it.
But in my opinion, I didn't mean to cut you off, but in my opinion, the reason why I think he's turning over the ball is because they're giving him the Josh Allen effect. They're putting too much pressure on Trevor because, as you said, the running game was non-existent. They got to rely on their running game and have to improve that offensive line. You got to keep them upright, and you can't have Jacksonville in a deficit, because your defense, although they may be improved, they're not one of the top defenses in the league. We're not looking at Jacksonville defense to be like, wow, they could be a top defense in the league. They could be a solid defense, but I don't think like a Pittsburgh or like a Baltimore, something
Yeah.
like that. They're just not going to be that. So I think they got to relieve some of that pressure off of him, in my opinion.
And I agree. There's many factors that have led to his turnovers. The biggest problem is those turnovers. The majority of them have all happened. I want to say last year it was like 10 of the 14 were in the red zone or on
Wow.
third downs.
Wow.
That's even a bigger issue because it's not even like you're just turning the ball over in certain moments. You're turning the ball over in crucial moments, which again,
Yeah.
I think because they couldn't run the ball, the offense was predictable. Everybody knew that it was going to be a pass play, so they would just blitz
Mm-hmm.
and go crazy. And from that, Trevor would end up having to scramble and do something, and the ball would get knocked out, or he would
Yep.
just try to press too much and do a little too much, which also happens. I think that was a big thing with Justin Fields too. He tried to do too much. He tried to play Superman sometimes, and
Oh,
it caused issues. But yeah, I just, because the AFC South is so hard, it's hard to tell. It's hard for me to say at this moment that
yeah.
it's a definitive yes. I do
Right.
think there's a lot of things. I do think the defensive line will be better. I do think that Brian Thomas is going to be a stud. So those things all factor in for me of why I could argue that they would.
Okay. I'm gonna wait to see how that running game is. I'm gonna wait to see how Travis is before I possibly change my pick. Right now, it's a no, but it's fluid. It's fluid, as Stephen A. Smith would say. It's fluid right now. So no question about that. But let's transition to the Bears. NFC is a much easier conference. You and I will both agree on that. Obviously, the Bears have quite a busy offseason, right? Had the number one pick in Caleb Williams coming to town. Took my receiver, which my team is the Los Angeles Chargers. I grew up
Yeah.
in San Diego, as I said. I'm a Chargers fan. They took Keenan Allen, and now he's on the Bears to team up with DJ Moore. I think the Bears have a solid offensive line. They were already pretty solid on defense as well. But the main thing, I think, for the Bears, people are rising their stock on this Caleb Williams kid. And let me preface this. I am a USC Trojans fan. I saw this kid play a lot. He's very good. But to say that he's going to usurp Detroit or Green Bay, I'm not sure if I would go that far. I still think they're probably, to be honest with you, I'm going to need some convincing because they're probably third or fourth in that division. I don't know if Green Bay is going to take a step back that much, losing Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Love is going to progress because that team was pretty solid and pretty good making it to the divisional playoff last year. We know what Detroit is. Detroit is they're going to be hard. They're going to be physical. I think they're going to be there. They're probably going to win the division again, in my opinion. Tell me why I am wrong on the Bears being either third or fourth in that division.
I'll be honest. It's hard to say that they won't, just because of, I think that Detroit and Green Bay are both a little ahead of the Bears. The Bears just this season, I mean, it's a rookie quarterback. You have two new. Roma Dunze is. I'm obsessed. Like, I have been pounding the table since January for the Bears to draft Roma Dunze. So but I didn't think it was possible. I was like, he's not going to be there at 9. And when Atlanta picked Michael Penix, I absolutely lost my mind because I was like, "Oh my God, we're about to get
Yeah,
Roma
you and me
Dunze."
both. We both lost our damn minds on that one. I couldn't believe Atlanta did that. But go ahead.
Yeah. So let rewind to last year real quick. Number one, the Bears were like 2 minutes away from beating Detroit both times. They beat them once. The first time they played them, the Bears were winning like 21-0, ended up collapsing towards the end. That's just was kind of their MO the last couple years. And I think in part of that, to me, when you have a team that can win 3/4 of football but can't close it, you're a player too short. And I think the Bears got those couple players that they were those player or two short. Number one, Montez Sweat was added halfway through the season last year, who completely changed our defense. The defense was one of the worst in the league
They
in the
did.
first half, flipped, won it, literally a top 3 defense in the second half when Montez Sweat was added. So that's one thing. You get a full season now of Montez Sweat, who had 6.5 sacks in each play in Washington and then in Chicago. So if you're banking on him having 13, 14 sacks here in Chicago, and all of us, I think automatically that kind of takes some pressure off the offense because the defense just had nothing in the first half of that season. But I also think that I don't know. I was a pro keep Justin person, and I'll be honest with that. I was very much like, let's keep Justin Fields, keep building around him, give him some more time to develop. This guy has had literally one of the worst cards dealt to him of how to develop
Yeah,
throughout
no
his
question.
the beginning of his career in the NFL. I mean, the first year was just atrocious. They wanted to start Andy Dalton, and he was the backup, but then Andy gets hurt and he gets thrown in against this Browns defense where he gets sacked 14 times. And that was the start of his career, and it never really got any better. It was always kind of messy. The line was bad. The line was banged up. His no receivers that year. They finally get DJ Moore, but beyond DJ Moore, it was people that'd be wide receiver threes on any other team.
Yep.
I love Colton Met and DJ Moore. They're fantastic. But aside from that, it was hard. And so, anyways, I was very pro Justin. It took a while for me to be convinced that Caleb was going to be different. I'm still hesitant. I'm cautiously optimistic about Caleb Williams. I've watched film. The kid's good. He does some things that like people can't do. His arm's incredible. I've talked to
Yep.
people. There's a QB trainer that actually works with me at 1010XL. His name's Denny Thompson.
Okay.
He owns this operation called 6 Points. 6 Points trains their quarterback trainers. So they train Anthony Richardson, Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback, Brock Purdy, Gardner Minshew, Caleb Williams, all guys that work with Denny and his group. Denny came into me and was like, Taylor, you're going to love this kid. And I was like, don't tease me. And he was like, I'm not kidding. Like the way the ball spins out of his hand, he said, I've never seen a quarterback who in releasing a ball, whether it's 50 miles per hour or 40 miles per hour, the spin looks the same. And he was like, most of the time that miles per hour difference is like 3 or 4. And after that, you're seeing it quack. Caleb's ball and the way he takes his hand, 10-mile-per-hour difference looks the same.
I
And he
love
was
it.
like, I've never seen that in my entire life. So I'm not a quarterback guru. I'm not sitting there analyzing his footwork and the way I'm not that person. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that I'm the person that can tell you all of that. But
Sure.
I've talked to people who have, and they're all like, if he doesn't work out, something weird happened. Like it's a mental thing or that it's some weird fluke and you guys really are cursed in Chicago. I don't know.
Right.
They're like, not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he should be a top 10 quarterback and it shouldn't be a
Oh,
question.
no, no
Especially
question.
when we're talking about, like you just said, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. And then in addition, you got DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson. You fix the offensive line. You have a top 5-6 defense. I personally think you could have a mid quarterback and still win a lot of games. So if Caleb is anywhere close to what people think Caleb should be,
Hmm.
they should win 10, 11 games. You've got to
They
be
will be close in
yeah.
making the playoffs. I do think that, like, unlike Jacksonville, I do think the Bears have a legitimate shot at making
And
the
I think
playoffs.
to your point, I think a lot of that is the NFC is easier. The
Yep.
NFC North is the best division, and the NFC North is the best division in the NFC from top to bottom. Because you can make an argument that all 4 teams have a chance. I think the Vikings, there's a lot of questions with JJ McCarthy, but when you have guys like Justin Jefferson, you have one of the best wide receiver in the league,
Right.
probably, if
But
not one of
right
the
now
best.
they got Sam Darnold in front of
Yeah,
JJ.
Sam. Yeah. So that'll
Yeah.
be interesting too. I do think they will start Sam, but I think JJ will be in by week like 5, 6. Um,
Mm,
but that's
okay.
just one of my hot takes. But I do think when you look at it, I mean, Philly, I love Jalen Hurts. They have all the weapons you need. Their defense absolutely died in the second half last season. So we'll see if they're able to kind of revamp from that. Dallas, I mean, Dallas is such a weird team because they always have everything you need. Dak had a career year last year and they still
Mhm.
couldn't pull it off. So it's always weird to kind of see them and what they're going to do. The Giants, I'm not a Daniel Jones fan, so I'm not
You
confident
and
in
me
that.
both, Taylor. I'm not either. Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm.
the NFC definitely has a path for the Bears to be able to get there. The
But
division
my
is
sleeper team is the Commanders. I think
okay.
Jaden Daniels could do some things. I think he
Yeah,
could. With Austin Eckler now over there at running back, he's a dual threat. Terry
yeah.
McLaughlin, they got some. Listen,
Scary,
they got
scary.
some pieces. They could do something. Jaden McDaniels, he's the real deal. I think he could do something.
Yeah. And there's always that team. There are always the teams that, the worst to first. The Bears obviously were worse in the division last year, so they would be
Mhm.
considered one of those worst to first if it happened.
Sure.
Um, I don't see them winning the division because, to your point, I do think the Lions are farther along, but also, like I said, we were 2 minutes away from beating both the Lions both times last season. But the Bears have to beat the Packers this year. The Bears haven't beat the Packers since 2018, and it's just though I think the Packers are like 24-3 against us in the
Oh,
last
wow.
however many years. It's bad. Like they just have some weird psychological thing against the Packers, and even in years when we probably should have won, they weren't able to. That has to flip this year. They've got to at least split with Green Bay. And we don't play a divisional game until week 11. All of our divisional games are week 11 and after. So I think by that time we'll have a pretty good idea of what the team is, all of them. So that'll be kind of fun because the second half I think is just going to be a race to that number one spot between those three.
I love it. I do. I'm on here with social media director Taylor Dahl of the flagship station for the Jaguars, 1010XL, and the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. We got 3 more questions, but this next one here is this or that. Okay. So this or that means I'm going to throw 2 things at you, and you get to choose one or the other. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. The first one is Popeyes or KFC?
Popeyes.
I knew, girl, we're going to be kindred spirits. I knew we were going to be friends. We good. We good,
Spicy.
girl. Okay. I love it. Now I definitely know we good. Okay, let's move on. Chicken wing flavors, barbecue or lemon pepper?
Lemon pepper.
Okay. Do you like your wings wet? Go ahead.
I'm more of a spicy over sweet person in general, so I will always choose like spicy savory over any sort of like sweet. So I usually am like a buffalo girl, but if I'm choosing between like a peppery and a barbecue, I'd go peppery.
I got you. I love buffalo too, by the way. Do you like your wings wet or dry?
I do. So I like dry, like I'd like dry lemon pepper. I like dry like rubs. But if I'm doing buffalo, I like them wet, but I like them extra crispy and wet.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Do you like your wings bone in or boneless?
Bone in.
Only way to go, right? Only way to go is a bone in. I feel it. I feel that. Okay. Next up, which sport would you rather watch on TV? Basketball or baseball?
Baseball.
Okay. Which sport would you? I love that. Oh, so Cubs or White Sox?
Yeah, Cubs. Go Cubs.
Got you. Exactly. Go Cubs. Which sport would you rather play? Badminton or bowling?
Oh, I actually really like badminton. That's probably going to sound weird, but I feel like I'm better at sports that are like fast paced and go that I don't have to think about too much. Like I'm not really good at like pool or darts because I feel like, or golf because I have to analyze it too much. But that's why I like basketball, volleyball, because you just kind of like go and react rather than have to like concentrate. So I feel like I'd be better at badminton.
I love it. Okay. So these next 3 questions have to do with music concerts you rather attend. Okay. So here we go. Which concert would you rather go to? Kendrick Lamar or Drake?
I feel like people are going to hate me for this, but I like Drake.
Okay. I like it. Okay. I like Drake too. I like them both, but I'm team Kendrick right now.
I like them too, but I have a lot I have a lot of Drake songs on my playlist. Like the Chicago Freestyle is one of my all-time favorite songs, and Passion Fruit, so I have to lean towards that.
Yeah. Chicago Freestyle is really good. I love that intro, that beginning. Oh yeah, with Giveon. That's pretty good. Okay. Which concert would you rather go to? Would you rather go see J. Cole or Lil Wayne?
That's good. Oh, that's a hard one. I have to go J. Cole, I think, just because of like the relevance. Like I've listened to more J. Cole recently. Like if you would have asked me 10 years ago, it would have been Lil Wayne right away.
Oh, no question, it would have been Weezy. And the Carters and oh yeah, the Carter albums, those are classics. Yeah. Okay. Last one of the music. Which one would you rather attend? Would you rather go see Chris Brown or Usher?
Usher, hands down.
I love it. Okay.
You should have seen me and my best friend at the Super Bowl. We were like in our own concert.
I love that. I love it. Okay. That's what's up. Okay. Do you like desserts?
I do.
Okay. So I'm going to throw 4 categories at you. You got to choose one of these to eliminate that you can't eat for the rest of your life.
Oh, gosh,
here we go.
Okay.
So cookies is the first one.
Okay.
Candy is the second one. The third one is cake. The last one is ice cream. Which one are you getting rid of?
Cookies, candy, cake, or ice cream?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say cake.
Okay. All right. Now, I would have said candy myself, Taylor. but
Yeah.
because red velvet, I'm a huge red velvet person, so I
Okay.
love red. So that's
I got it.
here we go.
I love chocolate, so I'm a big chocolate fan. So
Mhm.
chocolate, like I love Kit Kats, I love Reese's, I love chocolate ice cream. Like Rocky Road's my favorite, but cake, like
Okay,
I almost only like chocolate cake. So to me, I could eliminate because it's only like one thing I really like.
I totally understand that. I'm a cookies and cream type of guy. That's my favorite. So no question about it. I love that. Do you like potato chips?
Yes, I love
Okay,
chips.
here we go. Same format. You got to get rid of one of these. I'll throw four at you. The first one is Ruffles. The second one is Lay's. The third one is Pringles. The last one is Doritos. Which one are you getting rid of?
Ruffles, Lay's, Pringles, Doritos. I think I'd have to do Lay's.
Girl, was there any other decision outside of that?
Because I'm actually, and I know maybe people don't love Pringles. I personally love Pringles. I always have Pringles in my house. Something about
Absolutely.
Pringles. I'm a big Ruffle chip girl, so that definitely wasn't going anywhere. And Doritos, like you can't get rid of Doritos.
Absolutely. The greatest chip ever made was sour cream and cheddar Ruffles.
Yes,
That's the greatest chip
agree.
ever made. No
Yes, I
question.
agree.
I love it.
I eat those. I'm a big hot fries girl, so if that would have been on the list, that would have definitely been kept. But yeah.
I feel that. Okay. Last of the this or that. Which would you rather do? Would you rather do a radio show or would you rather do a podcast show?
That's good. I do both of them. So I would maybe say podcast just because you have less restrictions on what you can say. Like obviously radio, you're on air, so there's certain words and ways you things you can't say. And your podcast, you can just kind of be a little more free.
Hell yeah. No
Mhm.
question about it. I love it. I love that. Now, we talked about advice you gave. What is some advice that someone has gave you that you hold on dearly to?
Um, let's see. I get a lot of good advice and let's see. I think honestly, this is even like a relevant thing, a recent thing. So yesterday on Helmets and Heels, we had Leroy Butler. Butler is a former safety for the Packers, Hall of
Yep.
Fame safety. We mess with each other obviously because the Bears Packers thing, but he's fantastic. He's like the inventor of Lambeau Leap. But his story is incredible. I don't know how much you know about it. Real long story short, he grew up in a very poor neighborhood in Jacksonville, and he couldn't walk. Like he had, I don't like he said it as Forrest Gump legs. Like he had to get all those different braces and different things to figure out how to walk because he
Right.
just couldn't like he couldn't do any of that stuff. So he had to learn how to walk. He dealt with dyslexia. He was in like special ed. So he had like a really hard childhood of learning all of this stuff. And so he actually told me there's this coach here that is from Jacksonville. He used to coach, he coached Leroy, but he also coached Bulls. Mac Jones was under him. It's this guy named Corky Rogers, and he is like an iconic high school coach here in Florida, but here in Jacksonville. And he just shared some advice. I wish I could remember the exact quote, but it was just something along the lines of, being like seeing the person in yourself that others see, because he was obviously very insecure. He had braces on his legs and couldn't read, and he was very shy and timid and kind of was like down on himself. And Corky was like, I need you to see what I see in you. And that kind of stuck with me because I think so hard, like so many times we're our biggest critics. I know I'm hard on myself sometimes. I'll go
Yep.
back and listen to a podcast and I analyze everything I do, and I'm upset with myself later because I said something wrong or whatever. But there's people out there that genuinely like appreciate you and love you, and you're making people smile every day. And Corky's advice was just kind of like, see that and be that, because what I see in you, I would like see that in yourself. And I love that.
Sure. Sure. I love that. That's some great advice for sure. What is something that you want to talk about that we have not touched up on here on the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast before we conclude?
This is a hot topic here in Jacksonville, so I'm gonna get your opinion on it real quick before we leave because Trevor Lawrence just got his contract here in
Mhm.
Jacksonville. Obviously, the next quarterbacks that we're talking about getting paid: Tua Tagovailoa,
Yep.
Dak Prescott, Jordan Love. Which one of these do you think deserves the biggest paycheck right now?
Without question to it. That should be number one. Jordan Love, need to give him a little bit more time, right? First of all, it was his first year being that kind of that starter quarterback. He did well, but he also
Mhm.
had some games that he didn't do so well. So consistency is something that's key. You finally give Tua some weapons, and you see what Tua can do with Mike McDaniel. He had
Yeah.
Waddle, he had Hill, he had Mostert, Achane was running the ball well. The offense was good. However,
Yeah.
I think Tua deserves the money next because of what he has endured from getting hurt, coming back, playing well. Dak has already been given the bag. So for me, it's time to cash in for Dak. Like,
Mhm.
brother, they paid you very well. I mean, he's the only quarterback of the three that made $75 million in one season.
Yeah.
So for me, it's time for him to cash in on some of that money. Now,
Yeah.
it is a team sport, but brother, when they pay you that kind of money, you got to carry them to the finish line, right? At
Yeah.
least get through an NFC championship game, something that
Yeah.
you haven't done in 30 years as a franchise.
Yeah.
Tua should get the bag next
Mhm.
because of what he has done and what he has overcome. Dak has already had the bag, so it's just time for him to cash in.
Mhm.
And Jordan Love needs a little bit more consistency because there's been some games he's played well, like he played against Minnesota Vikings. He was excellent. But there's
Yeah.
been some games where he played against the New York Giants. You're like, what the hell is this? When he played against the Giants. So it's like the consistency needs to be there. So my opinion, Tua.
Okay. Love it. Yep. That's just been a big hot topic here. And I've been on the same page that Tua is next for me and deserves it, honestly. So I agree.
Mhm. Absolutely. Listen, I have personally never been to Florida before, but
Oh,
Jacksonville, somebody told me to go there first and then go to Orlando next. But somebody told me to go visit Jacksonville. But when I'm down there in Jacksonville, Taylor, you and
yeah.
I definitely have to link up for sure.
For sure.
I,
We'll, we'll
I
go
would
get
love,
some, we'll go get some Popeyes. We'll go to the beach.
I love that.
We'll go to some sort of sporting event. If it's not football season, I'll take you to hockey, one of our minor league hockey games.
I love that. And I know that obviously Florida and Georgia, I'm a huge Bulldogs fan. They play down
Okay.
there in the swamp in
Yeah.
Jacksonville. So,
You got to
so
come there.
I'm looking forward to actually trying to
Yeah.
get to one of those games, to be honest with you. I really
Yeah.
do want to go there and do that, but I would definitely be in Jacksonville this fall at some
Okay.
point. But I just wanted to say thank you for
Yeah.
coming on my podcast. This has been a great conversation. You are awesome at what you do. Keep doing it with a smile. I'm a new fan of yours. I would definitely tune in to the podcast. Let me know when it's running, and I would definitely tune in. If you ever need a guest, once again, hit me up. I will support. With that being said, though, enjoy your Thursday night, and thank you once again for coming on.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye.